Happy Saturday, everybody. Welcome to this Small Business Saturday video edition of our new series within the Furthermore with Amanda Head podcast. Again, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that is our audio podcast that we put out across all of the podcasting engines. And then, of course, on Saturdays, we have this Small Business Saturday episode. And I have absolutely loved getting to know some of these business owners across America, people who love our country, who believe in our founding values, people who are conservative, God-fearing Americans who are, mom and pop businesses across this country. We are trying to hit businesses in every single state. Today, we are featuring an amazing business from South Carolina. And what I love about today's episode is that, as many of you know, my background in a past life was the entertainment industry. So I love when I can bring entertainment and culture to this podcast, but specifically right now. I mean, I know that we live in a culture where in the entertainment space, we are just inundated with all of this woke garbage. And I am so delighted to have these two people on, because not only does it bring into the conversation culture, but it is also a small business. They are Chris Weatherhead and Clarence Felder. They are a husband and wife team. They are filmmakers, and they are the co-founders of the Actors Theater of South Carolina. And I encourage you all to go and check out their website, check out all of the films that they have made. I'm going to talk with them about a few specific ones, but they have made many, many films. You can go check them out. Go check out their IMDb and also the website. It is actorstheaterofsc.org, SC as in South Carolina. So I'm going to be back with them in just a minute. Welcome back, everybody, to another exciting episode of Small Business Saturdays. As many of you know, if you have tuned into these Saturday episodes before, we try to cover businesses all over the country. We obviously focus on businesses who are America-loving patriots, whose values align with ours, and people who are small businesses, people who are making an impact in this country. And we try to pick and choose businesses all over the country so that we can cover all of the regions. This is our first business out of South Carolina, but these folks have kind of come, they've been all over the country doing what they do now, but they are in South Carolina now. And boy, South Carolinians, I know, are so blessed by their business. Chris Weatherhead and Clarence Felder, the co-founders of the Actors Theater of South Carolina. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, what fun.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us.
Absolutely. We're so happy to have you. And for those who live in South Carolina, but maybe want to visit South Carolina, what's the draw of the Actors Theater of South Carolina? Why did you start it, and what's it all about?
Well, very quickly, we fell in love in New York doing Shakespeare together. And then we had both spent many years in New York. And then we were in LA for about 10 years. I'm from Newport Beach originally, but Clarence is from a little town called St. Matthews in South Carolina. And suddenly we got a call that his mother had lung cancer. And we decided that God was saying, okay, this is your time. We had been thinking about getting out. We had our issues with Hollywood and had for 10 years, but we came to South Carolina and realized we were not qualified to do anything.
Except this.
Act and write and produce and then do theater and Shakespeare and then film. A lot of our actors were really ready to do film when we created the company. And Clarence and I both had a list of things that we had really wanted to do to have creative control, which our managers and agents they would laugh at that, right? They would laugh. Yeah. But we each had a list, and we have tremendous respect for each other's artistic gifts and what God has given each of us. So we're very respectful of that. And we've done it for 28 years now.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. Incredible.
And, it really was interesting, because as soon as we got to, we were going to celebrate our 25th anniversary here in South Carolina, doing the plays and now films and things like that. And then wham, COVID hit.
And almost destroyed the whole company.
And we were in Charleston, basically, here, South Carolina, very artistic city. Anyway, most theaters went out of business, because you know how it is.
It was live theater.
When you're running a rep company or that kind of thing, there's a certain core of supporters and a core
Yes.
that wants to see Measure for Measure,
Yes.
or Twelfth Night or whatever. But even those people stopped coming, and they discovered that it was easier to watch a DVD,
Right.
and platforms got very popular. We subscribe to everything because we just love movies.
Right. Consumers.
We actually already at COVID had 2 films, Revolutionary War films in worldwide distribution. So our board met and said, look, let's rock on with anything film. And my sister died of COVID in California in 2020. And
so
one
sorry.
of the films that's about to go out this fall, we all kind of got together and we decided, well, let's shoot some stuff. We got a grant from the South Carolina Humanities, and the films that are coming up this next year, we shot in 2020 in a little studio, and the actors would come in with their masks, then they would take them off and then they could like really be actors. And so we did 2, actually we did 3 really incredible videos. I must have shot 2.5 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours of stuff during the summer of 2020. And all of that stuff is now being put into a distribution form for the world. And the other films, well, the films are all for Liberty. And then John Lawrence War, those were already done. And then recently went into distribution with Frederick Douglass, No Turning Back.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, I watched some of the trailers for your films, and there seems to be quite a bit of subject matter that appeals to me personally. And I actually want to play the trailer for In the Sea of Grace so that our audience can see that. So hang tight and we're going to show that for everybody.
Okay.
Great.
Fill those with the fire coming from God's word.
Stop this treason!
Blessed is the one who keeps the words of prophecy in this book.
He has also set eternity in the human heart. I know that everything God does will endure forever. Nothing can be added to it, and nothing taken away.
He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul.
The people walking in darkness have seen a great light.
For I am now being poured out like a drink offering, and the time of my departure is at hand. I have fought a good fight. I have finished my course. I have kept the faith.
To these things, if God is for us, who can be against us?
Our Heavenly Father's fund of love and mercy is new every morning, yes, even to the end of the age.
Chris and Clarence, so 2 of my loves are American history, especially pertaining to the Revolutionary War, and
Yes.
biblical history. So In the Sea of Grace just really, really resonates with me. Tell me about the inception of this film. Some beautiful locations, by the way. The production quality is top notch. Tell us about the making of this.
Well, before I ask Clarence to do that, Trevor D. Erickson is an extraordinary cinematographer, editor, and sound designer. So John at Patmos and an Allegory is something that Trevor and I put together with Clarence's story that he was getting visions for. I'll let him tell you. He kept getting visions the year before. And I finally turned to him and said, honey, I think this is a film. We tried to figure out how were we going to create the island of Patmos in Charleston, South Carolina. But thank God, that's all I can say. So how did you get the idea?
Well, actually, my brother, John Felder, he's a lawyer and a politician here in South Carolina. And he is a lay leader in his church. And he kept saying to me, you're about right now to do John when he was on Patmos.
Oh, no kidding.
And then she said it too. A little later, she said,
this sounds like a movie to me.
And then I went back and I read the opening of the Gospel of John, where it talks about, it is gorgeous poetry, but truth. And he talks about logos. And that's the Greek word for the word, as I'm sure you know. But it also, in the classical Greek, the Stoics used that word too. But they didn't mean an individual or a person. They meant a conduit that everything is created. Wow. However, John, because it's amazing to me whenever I read what he says in his letters about being there. I was there. I saw it. I saw him. I felt him. It's stunning. And then he says, nothing that has been created was ever created that wasn't created by Jesus. And I said, man, if I could play this guy, it really would.
We had, I think, the most calm, loving, fun crew and set. It was as if the Holy Spirit was with us the whole time. And sometime in the future, after you've seen the film, I'll give you some secrets of how we created the island of Patmos. But without Clarence's vision, which we kept trying to say, okay, what did you see? What did you see? We were trying not to do too much. We were trying to, I think the motivation was to help people, even like me, who had been resisting revelations for years. I've been a Christian for 40 years. I came late to it. I was like 34 and had been all over the map before, but Revelations was hard for me, and working on this film really helped me. And also we hope that the film itself will help drive people into the Word, into the Bible, and into Revelation.
Also, I really felt at that point, I know that Christians, we walk a real tightrope, which I'm sure we all have at one time or another. For me, you have to balance complete, wonderful hope and actually that horrible slough of despond that he talked about. And you have to balance that. And I'm telling you, I felt like that I could help maybe people understand that even though they were despairing and giving up, Jesus wasn't giving up. And he had him right there. He had him. He said, all you got to do is take my hand and I'll be there for you.
Amen. Amen. I want to ask you too, because you've spent a significant amount of time in Hollywood and also New York. There is this pretty ugly attitude among uppity people here in Los Angeles and New York that, excuse me, in the flyover states like South Carolina, the Midwest, Alabama, where I'm from, that these people, they're not cultured. They don't know anything about Broadway. you know, they couldn't name a Christopher Nolan film. They have no clue about cinematography or anything like that. And what's amazing about what I have learned is that especially the South, and I'm biased because I'm from Alabama, but there is so much culture on top of the culture that LA and New York consider to be refined. And I mean, one of our dear friends produced an Oscar-winning short film that was filmed in the Carolinas, and it was all local cast, all local crew. Talk to us about, you know, when you took that plunge and you left Los Angeles and you went to South Carolina, how did you find it to be culturally, as far as people accepting, you know, the stage productions and the films?
Well, I kind of, for me, I got started in Columbia, South Carolina, with a lot of sort of local theaters and stuff. I don't want to
classical
put them
Shakespeare,
down, but one of the first plays I ever did was Macbeth, and I played Macbeth.
I love it.
Wow, you know what I found was that there is so much in the Elizabethan culture and social mores that are exactly like the Southern view of life. You can do anything you want to us as long as you are respectful of what you do. But do not denigrate or disrespect us as people. And the Elizabethans were the same way. They were armed and they had those weapons. And a lot of people made that mistake. Now, we will welcome you. We'll be happy to hear what you have to say. And God bless your little heart. You know? But don't threaten us, and don't say, well, we came here to enlighten and improve what you do, because we all the time.
I want to add something. I think people were a little concerned about us when we first got here, because they thought, these are Hollywood people.
California, uppity California.
Hollywood people. And they didn't realize that we were just folks, and we had been Christians for many years, and we'd actually, I had been in 3 different prayer groups in Hollywood working with, and I also had been in the prisons in between acting jobs. I was that's how the Lord taught me.
Yes, I wanted to ask you about that. This is so amazing, because you're just this beautiful, genteel, petite little lady, and you worked in prisons.
Well, let me tell you, when the Lord asks you to do something, I recommend you do it.
Yes.
I did not at first. In fact, I got a very direct, I heard the words, and it was, I want you to visit the prisoners. I was walking on the beach in where we were in LA. We were living in Marina del Rey, and I thought, I can't be in this business anymore. I mean, I'm a Christian, I'm a woman, everything my agent gives me, I hate. And I heard, I mean, there was a quiet, there was a wind, and I heard, I want you to visit the prisoners. And I thought, what would I?
Yeah, excuse me, say that again, what?
I mean, they're already like, you know, better actors than I am. They're con men. So for a year, I stupidly, and for anybody listening, do not resist the Lord if he wants you to do something. So a year later, bless his heart, Clarence had gotten me connected with a friend of mine's sisters who was in prison ministry, and she was from the Philippines, and she looked at me and she said, have you been called? And I went, oh, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. She said, no. Look, if you've been called, you'll wake up one day soon and you will have no fear. Well, that happened about 3 months later, and then I did it for 7 years.
Yeah.
You know, God works his miracles in strange ways.
So what did you do in the prisons?
Well, here's the deal. I thought I was just being called to, because I was a writer. I had been a writer for years. I had already been a screenwriter. So I thought, oh, well, I'm just supposed to do interviews or whatever. I mean, the group that I was with was Match 2 Prisoner Outreach. So I started out doing interviews, and then they said, well, could you do some video? And so I hired a couple of guys from LA, and we went out, and my poor husband, he didn't want me going. And, you know, in California, they are not going to
Yeah,
negotiate
they
for
tell you that.
hostages.
There's a
I had
big
to sign
sign.
something every time I went into a prison there, because if they grab you, then they're not going to negotiate for your life. So I had told him, I said, look, if this is how I die, this is how I'm supposed to die, because I'm a Christian now. And I mean, I owe him everything. I had tried to kill myself several times as a druggy person in San Francisco many years earlier. And I was so grateful for my life, for his forgiveness. I thought the least I can do is go do this prison stuff, right? And in between, I was acting. So I would shoot something in Hollywood, and then the next day I would drive up, I would be at the prisons. And Amanda, it was a great leveling experience. And then I would go back to LA, and I would realize that the people that I was working with in LA were imprisoned.
Yes.
Lust, by greed, by power, by whatever. And I thought, gee, these people are not even behind bars, and yet they're in prison. And the people I'm meeting in prison are
Some of them,
are
yeah.
more, some of them. That's what some of
Hey,
them,
well,
Right.
more free than the people I was working with.
Right.
Anyway, that's all right. I
Clarence,
didn't
were
mean
you,
yeah.
Clarence, were you with her at this time?
Oh,
Did you
yeah.
guys-
But no, I
Were you
didn't.
scared?
I went in.
We were married, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah, he
went
was
in.
terrified.
I went in once and I said, that's it for me. I will not be back. No, thank you.
I
No.
love that.
Yeah, it's like, well, will they always let me out? I mean,
Right.
no, I didn't like it in there. That was not good.
And my boss he was the best boss I
Yeah,
ever
he's an
had.
amazing guy.
Sam Huddleston, he has written a book. He wrote a book because he at first was an inmate, but then he got out, did all these wonderful things, went through college,
Wow.
married. He is the grandfather of many children now, but he's an incredible guy. And we used to drive around LA, this white woman with red hair. Oh, I used to have red hair. A white woman and this black guy. We used to go around and do TV shows to try to get people to go inside and be a volunteer for the program. Well, you talk about a hard sell, honey.
I imagine.
I mean, if you talk about, any number of other things, people are going to listen. But as soon as you talk about how they could go into a prison and be matched with an inmate and help them to have a good law-abiding friend, and when they get out, maybe they won't do. Anyway, it was a hard sell. But I had the best boss, and I want to recommend his book. It's called 5 to Life.
Okay.
It's a very excellent book. Sam Huddleston.
Wonderful, wonderful. Clarence, I want to ask you, I know that you both have a very, very strong background in Shakespeare. You both have done a number of stage productions, including Broadway and off-Broadway. I have always had, and maybe it's because of my own classical background, I started singing opera and training with them.
Well, that's right. Opera. I love opera.
So that's my musical background, even though I ultimately ended up in the pop arena, but my background, my foundation was classical. And I want to ask you, having that classical background in Shakespeare, do you feel like that is the foundation that allows you to do so many different things in this arena?
Wow, that's a great question.
Yeah,
I'd say without a doubt, because when you look at two of the best writers or books that have been written, I think, in the English language, you're talking about the Bible. Number one, especially for an actor or actress or whatever, the King James Version, which is Tudor and Elizabethan, and William Shakespeare. I think they are exactly alike in so many ways. And I'm adapting them now, a number of the plays as we go along, and then we produce them. We've done them. And I am now looking at Measure for Measure. And that is all
I have to interrupt.
Yeah.
I have to say, he has done 7 adaptations of Shakespeare.
Wow.
I directed 4 of them, but I mean, no one is more qualified in America or the world to do what he has done in terms of adapting Shakespeare, because he makes them roughly 90 minutes long. He makes them very accessible. He has the understanding and the experience of knowing what works with an audience. And that's why you seem to choose things that are going to be very accessible.
Yeah, and it needs to be accessible, because Shakespeare, the levels of meaning just keep going and going.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
what,
it's
yeah.
I think that's so great. And I love how supportive you both are of each other and admiring of each other's talents and your skills and such. We're going to take a very quick commercial break, but when we come back, we are going to talk about your another one of your films, Echoes of Glory, Heroes from the American Revolution, which just happens to be one of the things that I'm most passionate about. So we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
I was a free man before the revolution. I am an American and a Navy man.
I rode my horse over those hills and I said, "To God be the glory."
Oh, my heart sailed through the air, and then a shingle. It burst into flame.
The colonel turned to me and said, "Take 30 of your men and clear that pass."
Und I jumped out the window onto my horse and rode like the wind.
These hands which fought for your liberties are now open for your relief.
One must not only talk, one must take action.
Now, I will not call him Lord Cornwallis, as I have but one Lord, and he could never be that red-coat weasel sent to destroy everyone who wanted freedom.
All right, welcome back, everybody. I am so honored to be with this wonderful pair. For many of you, you know that my background is creative. I was in Hollywood or the music industry for a very long time. Chris Weatherhead and Clarence Felder of the Actors Theater of South Carolina. Tell us about the film that I teased before the break, Echoes of Glory, Heroes from the American Revolution.
Well, you want to do it?
Okay. So Trevor Erickson, our wonderful cinematographer, and I, during this time of COVID, we had about 12 actors that actually in Echoes, there's only 9. There are 9 different heroes. One of them is famous, Francis Marion, the Swamp Fox, but the other people are virtually the very unlikely heroes. Each of black, white, young, old, women, men.
I did see a cameo by Daniel Morgan, who is one of my favorite heroes of the American Revolution.
What a great guy. What a great guy.
We even have a Catawba warrior who's a soldier.
Yes.
But let me tell you why that film happened. It was because first, when we got here shortly after, there was a lady on the internet that said to Clarence.
I hated the thought of a computer.
Yeah, you hated that. But I'll make this quick. There was a lady who said, "Are you by any chance descended from the kick-butt Revolutionary War hero, Captain Henry Felder?" And he thought, well, dang, I hope so. And he started doing
That's a question you want to say yes to.
And what he found out was he is the 6th great grandson direct from Captain Henry Felder, who put together a militia here and wrote the Articles of Separation from the English king for this colony. And Clarence never knew.
Well,
Clarence,
now I got to interrupt.
His brother didn't know. They didn't know.
Amanda, though, you being Southern, you'll understand this perhaps as well as us.
Good story.
Because I can tell you that my mama hated my daddy's people.
She didn't like the Felders.
Poor Felders.
Oh.
So
was she a Yankee?
She never told us about anything about the whole history of the Felder.
What?
So that
Now
is
look,
why we
you
did.
being Southern, you know
Yeah.
how that can happen.
And that
I
is
mean,
why he was then commissioned to write a play about his 6-week grandfather.
Yes.
And then I said, excuse me, honey, this is a movie. So after the play had opened, I said, I'm sorry, but all our people want to shoot a really good film. This is a great story. Let me open this thing up. Let's make it a great screenplay. It'll be the hardest thing we've ever done. And it was. And so that started winning major international awards in 2008. And we were still just barely out of analog into digital. I mean, it's a miracle we shot that film. And I shot on like 31 locations across our state.
Wow.
Some really amazing locations, including our farm. And so the answer to your question really is that Captain Henry Felder led us to John Lawrence, and John Lawrence wore that film then opened up the way for, there's really now about 19 or 20 other heroes that we have discovered. I mean, there's so many people who fought like crazy for us to be a free country. We owe it to them to keep this going.
Yeah.
And that's why Echoes of Glory, that's
yeah.
only 9 of them.
But Chris, would you please tell them about the way you learned to really shoot in a hurry under a lot of pressure in the prisons?
Yeah, well, going back to the prisons, I thought I was just answering the call, okay? I had no idea that within about 2 years, we were going to be in South Carolina, and this whole thing with these actors who wanted to do film, and we had both done a lot of film and blah, blah, blah. And I suddenly realized, wait a minute, I shot all those training films, PSAs, all this stuff. And I thought, wait a minute, you know, as a woman and as an actress, I had been treated like a child. A lot of I had been a soap opera star. I had been an actress who felt even like a child. But once I get done, I was finished with the prison stuff. I thought, you know what? I could direct a film. And now I've directed like 9 films, but I had to shoot in the prisons with available light. I had to shoot very quick. I was shooting under actually rather dangerous circumstances, which is for another time. But I wanted to, I personally would like to go back to what I feel is very important for me as a 76-year-old person, and my husband is 85. We are Christians. There is no retirement for Christians.
No, none.
Because if you're willing, the Lord is just going to keep giving you stuff. And you're such a tiny little, you know, you're so young. And you've got so much ahead of you. But we both want you to live in a free country. So we're going to spend the rest of our lives fighting this fight to keep America. He went to Bulgaria on a state exchange thing with the Actors Theater of Louisville. He came back to New York City and said to me about 3 days later, sit down. I'm going to tell you what it's like to live in a communist country.
Wow.
And when he told me, I mean, I laughed. I said, oh, well, this is America. It'll never happen here. That was 40 years ago.
Now,
we really have educated ourselves.
It already.
We're fighting for you, honey.
Creeping,
I know.
creeping, yes.
Well, and my generation owes people like you of your generation a debt of gratitude. And especially, you know, I think that you two have a very, very special calling. And you're right, as believers, we don't ever have retirement as long as we are willing to continue receiving assignments from the Lord that will carry us until the great by and by.
Amen.
I wanted to ask you about well, first of all, actually, I have a tech question because I always love to ask people this because my husband's in the film industry. What
is your husband?
What does he do?
That's Ryan?
It is, yes. Well, that's a whole nother story. We'll talk offline.
Okay.
You know, COVID changed a lot of things in the film industry, especially in an industry that was already moving in the direction of demonizing white, straight Christian men. But anyway, because of him, I have gotten very into the tech side of things. So I'm very interested if you have a particular camera that you like to shoot on. I know Ari and Red were big for a while, but now Blackmagic has kind of moved into that space. Do you have a particular camera that you like to shoot on?
That's a very short answer because our cinematographer is needing a new camera. And so he would be the one to answer that question. He is amazing. He is able to take, like, for instance, the film we just got another award on this year in Nashville, Frederick Douglass, No Turning Back. That was a stage play. That was something that just like John at Patmos was like based on images and visions that Clarence had. I had these visions about Frederick Douglass. And so I read all 3 of his autobiographies and I wrote this 1-hour script. And when I got to the end of it, I said, oh, great, Lord, where am I going to find an actor who can do this? And so we were doing that as a stage play. And I always did archival footage of anything that we were doing. So Trevor was there with an audience, packed audience of 250 people. Came in,
It was
set
in
up
a
the
church,
lights,
actually.
set up he put mics all around, hidden them. And I was packing people in. And we shot this in one take. It's an hour film in one take. It's across the world now. Frederick Douglass, No Turning Back, sat during COVID for 2 years. And it was like my guardian angel said, no, that's a viable film. You need to watch it. And I thought, what? And when I saw it, I thought, well, wait a minute. Yeah, I don't have any reverses on the audience.
Right.
But this is incredible. And so that, for instance, that film shot in one take has now won 7 or 8 international film awards, and people in Nigeria or wherever are able to see this. Now, to answer your tech question, we've been trying to get Trevor to tell us, what do you need? What do you need?
Yeah.
Because we feel like he's the only one who can know the technology. But what I do is I watch all the footage and I do edit notes, and then he does all of the editing. But his ability to shoot with a very kind of old camera is amazing.
But we did submit John at Patmos for an award, a series of awards in a film festival. And lo and behold, Trevor won an editing award, and we didn't submit it.
Yeah, they said, when you see the film.
Well, it's once the battle starts.
The final battle between good and evil, we just were able to do a little preview of that.
Specific. God also said to me, now look, we've had enough of these CGI effects and big noises and all of that stuff. He said, why don't you show what was happening in nature,
on the island, in the water?
I love that.
And boy, was that it was perfect. And I just kept asking Trevor for that, and what else?
He figured it out.
I said, no, just nature. What's happening to the world in this fight?
Right.
That worked. It really worked. And it suited our budget too.
Now, by the way, Light for Your Journey, which is the second part of the 2-part spiritual adventure of In the Sea of Grace, that was shot at that same time in 2020, when 4 of us got together and said, look, the world, people are dying all around us, all across the world. What can we do? So we each picked something that was spiritually very important to us from the Bible. And I chose the 23rd Psalm because I couldn't really relate very well. Both of our fathers were in World War II. They were World War II heroes, and his father even went to Korea. And we do a lot of what we do because of our fathers.
Yeah.
But the 23rd Psalm was kind of the last thing that my father and I were able to relate on.
And second,
Second Timothy, that last letter that he wrote ever,
amazing,
right before the killed him.
Yep.
You two are so inspiring. I love the joy that you have in your work and in each other, and your joy of the Lord. I think that you are doing something that is so important. I think that what you have there in South Carolina is really, really special. And I encourage everyone to go You can check them out online, Actors Theater of SC, as in South Carolina.org. Chris Weatherhead and Clarence Felder, thank you so much for being here. What an honor it was to have you.
Keep up that great work.
And sing some more so we can hear you.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Listen, like I said, I got to oil the pipes a little before I present them publicly. It's been a little while. They're rusty. Thank you both so much. Blessings to you, and we'll have you back on again soon.
Thank you, darling. Take care. Have a blessed day.
Same to you. Thank you. Everybody. All right, before we head out for the weekend, I think we do have to touch on a few important stories, and I'm going to stick with the theme of entertainment and bring a story to you guys. So many of you might know that Hollywood imposed a vaccine mandate during COVID, and for a lot of actors who stuck to their scruples, they weren't able to work throughout COVID, and then the writer's strike, and then the actor's strike, and then ATSC, which is I think it's the largest labor union in California. It's got, I think, 170,000 members, but these are people in the entertainment industry, mainly crew. So it's grips, it's lighting, it's craft services. I think even editors are a part of this union, cameramen, maybe even cinematographers are a part of this. But again, 170,000 union members. So IATSE was threatening to strike because why not? They're a union strike. That's like what they do. But they have been threatening to go on a strike. And then I just found out earlier this week, actually, that apparently they reached negotiations and they reached an agreement. So they are not going to strike. But in the news that Joe Biden is out of the race and Kamala Harris has gotten shoved in because democracy, right? Ignoring the will of 14.5 million Democrat voters who voted for Joe Biden in the primary. And now they're just going to basically coronate Kamala Harris. So good for her, I guess. Anyway, IATSE has thrown their support behind Kamala Harris in her bid for the White House. Now, the reason I bring this up is because many of you might remember, if you have been following me and my work for a long time, the first year that Biden went into office and the economy started just absolutely tanking, I was talking about, the supply chain crisis and Bidenomics and how it was affecting everything, especially movie studios. Because if you remember, there was that period of time where lumber and paint and all sorts of construction equipment just absolutely exploded. I mean, it was higher than, you all remember when a dozen eggs went up to like $8. The prices for construction materials exploded even more so than that. It was like 300%, 200 to 300%. And that was affecting Hollywood because all of these productions who were trying to build sets, whether it was on a soundstage here in Los Angeles or constructing a set somewhere out in the desert or in, wherever the case may be, we all know that there's been a lot of filming that's been taking place in Louisiana and Tennessee and Georgia and Wyoming and places like that. But those construction materials absolutely exploded. So even Hollywood, especially Hollywood, was affected by Bidenomics. And now you have these people unbelievably endorsing their own demise again. So 170,000 technicians, stagehands, other craftspeople in Hollywood and on Broadway. This also includes Broadway. They announced earlier this week that they are backing Kamala Harris's campaign. Their statement reads, "We honor Biden's decision not to run for re-election and are committed to doing whatever it takes to elect Vice President Kamala Harris this November." He also took a swipe at former President Donald Trump, using the left's very often repeated canard that he represents a threat to democracy. It's so interesting to me that people who talk about Donald Trump being a threat to democracy, nothing like shoving in your preferred candidate in the name of democracy. A woman who literally not a single person voted for during the primary. They voted for Joe Biden. Sure, she was on the ticket, but she wasn't at the top of the ticket. So technically, politically, legally, no one voted for her. And this is the third cycle in a row. I talked about this earlier in the week. In 2016, they shepherd's hooked Bernie Sanders, exit stage left. And then in 2020, you had, Klobuchar and Warren and all of these people that basically diluted the field that would allow Joe Biden to rise to the top and Bernie Sanders to go down. And then now in 2024, they're doing it again. The Democrat Party does not care anything about democracy. They are the opposite of democracy. In fact, if democracy was how they actually feel, they wouldn't be Democrats, because you can't have a Democrat who also believes in democracy these days. You're just not a part of the party anymore. Most of those people have actually moved over to the Republican side. All right, guys, I don't want to keep you too long in this Saturday, so I did want to get to some of the polling. If you didn't see my podcast on, what was that on Monday? I think it was Monday. Emerson College polling that polled different candidates against President Trump. And Joe Biden is the one who came the closest. It was 46 to 43, 46 Trump and Biden at 43. So Joe Biden was only 3 points behind Donald Trump. But you got Trump at 49 versus Harris at 43. So a 6-point spread there. Trump at 48, Bernie Sanders at 42. I'm just going to read the margins now. So between Trump and Newsom, Trump is up 8 points. Between Trump and Clinton, he's up 7 points. That would be Hillary Clinton. Between Trump and Buttigieg, he's up 10 points. Between Trump and Shapiro, he is up, 8 points. Between Trump and Gretchen Whitmer, he's up 10 points. So Joe Biden was their best bet. And you've got so many idiots out there saying, oh, Kamala Harris is Donald Trump's worst nightmare. Are you kidding me? She's not going to pull back more of the black vote that Joe Biden lost. In fact, black men despise Kamala Harris. Number one, she's not black, okay? She's Jamaican and Punjab, all right? That's not black. Technically, you can say that Jamaicans are black because of descendants, but it's not provable. She's Jamaican and Punjab, Indian. So she's not even black, but her treatment of black men in California as a prosecutor, there's one case in particular where she withheld exculpatory information about his case, about him. And so there are instances over and over and over again of Kamala Harris screwing over black men. And I think it's going to come back to bite Democrats in the butt. I'll say it again for the millionth time. I don't want to be Pollyannish. We have to fight like we are 4 touchdowns behind. You know what? Let's up it. 5 touchdowns behind. We got to fight like that. But boy, oh boy, I don't know about y'all. Oh, and Kimberly Cheadle, the director of the Secret Service, she's out after that explosive and disastrous hearing up on Capitol Hill on Monday, where I think it was Tennessee Congressman Tim Burchett called her a DEI horror story. And Congressman Pat Fallon of Texas told her that she needed to go back to guarding Doritos. If you don't know the reference there, she formerly served as the, I think, senior director of global security at PepsiCo, which owns Doritos brand. So it was a rough day for her. And she, quite frankly, absolutely deserves to. She shouldn't have been able to resign. She should have been fired, but Joe Biden doesn't seem to fire anyone. All right, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend. And remember, we have the audio version of this podcast out on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Furthermore, with Amanda Head on all the podcasting platforms. And then this video version of the podcast called Small Business Saturdays that's available on the weekends. And that is, of course, a video podcast because you're saying, that's how you know. All right, everybody. Have a great rest of your weekend, and I'll see you on Monday.